There you go, Frank.
Oh, there's the sound of joy and peace throughout the world.
What's it going to be this week, Frank? Who the heck is?
It's a twin. It's a twin this week in the news. This week's twin headline is, "Hey, Rosser Reeves, thank you for the small business lesson." And the question is?
Who is Rosser Reeves?
Glad you asked. Rosser was born in 1910.
Oh, he or she's old.
Yeah, well, and no longer
And
with
dead.
it.
Yes.
And dead. In Virginia to a Methodist preacher. So, he came from a strict background. He attended the University of Virginia. Remember, his father was a Methodist preacher until he was expelled from school for getting drunk and then taking his friend's car and crashing it. And this is during the Prohibition era. Okay.
Ooh.
But luckily, Rosser had just won a $100 prize. Now, this is about 1928 or so. As a prize for a statewide chemistry contest. And his competition, the other students wrote some chemical formula for this contest. Rosser knew nothing about chemistry because he spent most of his time drinking, dancing, and gambling. Decided to enter anyway. Instead of coming up with a unique formula, he wrote an essay called "Better Living Through Chemistry." And he won. And he won. By the way, that phrase would make him lots and lots of money. Okay. So Rosser took $100 because he got thrown out of school, and he moved to Virginia, Richmond, and he was hired by a new bank that says, "Hey, we want young, bright, young people." So they hired contest winners. Well, Rosser wasn't a good student. He was hired as an accountant, and the bank says, "Man, you are really terrible as an accountant, but you have a good knack for words." So they hired him to write some ads for the bank. They did. And that was the turning point of his Rosser Reeves and how he left his mark. Rosser Reeves is since deceased. I think it was 84. He's one of the most famous advertising executives from the middle of the 28th century. He has 3 claims to fame. Number 1, he coined the term USP, unique selling proposition. He said that any product or service in the marketplace, you have to specify what's different so you can win against your competitors. Wow. I mean, we take that now as a standard.
Right.
Rosser Reeves came up with that. He was the first ad man to produce TV spots for a presidential campaign. It was Dwight David Eisenhower, and he created this term, "I like Ike."
I saw that on TV.
Yeah, that was him. That was him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's the one that coined that phrase. But
Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president. You like Ike, I like Ike, everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum, we'll take Ike to Washington. We don't want John or Dean or Harry, let's do that big job right. Let's get in step with the guy that's hep, get in step with Ike. You like Ike, I like Ike, everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum, we'll take Ike to Washington. We got to get where we are going, travel day and night for president. Let Adelaide go the other way, we'll all go with Ike. You like Ike, I like Ike, everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum, we'll take Ike to Washington, we'll take Ike to Washington.
Now is the time for all good Americans to come to the aid of their country.
Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president.
what people talk about him most is he was the main character in one of the most famous stories in advertising, and this is my twin. And here is that story. Ad executives back then, and maybe even so today, they're not the most generous people in the earth, in the world. They always help themselves. That's what they get paid to do. But they really help the little people. And Rosser and one of his co-workers were having lunch in Central Park. Now, remember, this is 1930s, 1940s. And after completing their lunch and business conversation, they were walking back to their Madison Avenue office. And as they were walking, Rosser stopped dead in his tracks. And he stared at a cardboard sign held by a man in a tattered piece of cloth. And the cloth seemed to be been old and abused, was held together, as Rosser calls, by a hope and a prayer. Beneath this dirty black cloth was a very frail body, and the body belonged to a beggar. And the beggar held out his cup. He was looking for donations. The cup shook in the old man's hand, and as Rosser said, it emitted the most pitiful of sounds, because there was only one coin in his cup. It was a quarter. And the man was there looking for, I guess, his next meal. Wait a minute. You just told me advertising executives don't care. Was he feeling pity? No. Remember, Rosser was only into himself. Rosser was not at all interested in the beggar or even his empty cup. What captured Rosser's attention was a 3-word sign that the beggar was holding up. And it read these 3 words: I am blind. The gentleman was blind. Okay. Rosser's friend came up to him and said, what are you looking at? And Rosser says, why do you think no one is giving this man any money in the middle of Central Park? And his friend says, well, they're just too busy. Don't worry about it. And Rosser said, yeah. He says, they're always busy. But that hasn't stopped people in the past. People are too busy to buy our products, but they do. People are too busy to vote, but they vote. Plus, this blind man is more deserving than all those idiots that get our help. And a friend says, well, then maybe he just got here. That's why he only has 25 cents in his cup. Rosser said, okay. He said, he went to the blind beggar and he said, how long have you been sitting here? And the beggar replied, well, I slept here last night. I woke up early, so I've been here just about all day. Remember, it was lunchtime. And Rosser said, well, this just won't do, in his kind of voice. The beggar got excited. He says, man, and he held out the cup for Rosser to donate. But Rosser didn't put any money in the guy's cup. He turned away from the beggar and faced his friend and says, do you have a pen? And the friend says, yes. He said, I'm going to take this man on as our client, and I'm going to dramatically increase his earning with just 4 words. Rosser turned back to the beggar and said, sir, treat him with respect. He says, you're not doing very well here. He says, my name is Rosser Reeves. He says, and it's my job to persuade people to open their wallets and buy the goods of my clients. He says, I'd like you to be my client. And I promise you, with 4 little words, I'll bring you enormous revenue. Remember, Rosser is into himself. He says, but I'm going to charge you. It will cost you 1 quarter, which is all the man had in his cup. What do you say? What could the beggar say? He put his hand in his cup, took out his only quarter, and gave it to Rosser. Rosser took the beggar's sign and took it to a bench where he added 4 words to that sign. Rosser and his friend gave it back to their client, and then Rosser and his friend stood aside to see what kind of results they would get. The first man that passed by was almost running, like a little jog. He had no intention of stopping his workout to help some bum, and the guy was a bum, but he stopped as if he hit a wall. The man looked at the sign and stopped immediately and dropped a coin into the beggar's cup. Okay. Next came a woman in a business suit. She glanced at the sign, turned around and looked at the trees and the birds, pulled out a $1 bill and placed it in the beggar's cup. And person after person that walked by the blind beggar, and he received, it's called a deluge of coins and bills until his cup was overflowing. What was even more amazing is not that the people stopped after reading the modified sign that Rosser did to donate money to the beggar. He also stopped and had a little chat with the blind man and described the beautiful woman walking by, and the squirrels and the birds and the flowers blooming. Rosser's work was done. He headed back to his Madison Avenue office, proud that he did what he knew he could do. His friend was amazed and asked Rosser, how did you know that that would work? And here's Rosser's response. Contrast, 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 my friend. Those people are always in their own little heads, and aren't we all? He said, it is our job as advertising people to help them see what we want them to see. I added 4 little words to that sign that would starkly contrast their words, their world, the people walking by, to that of the blind man's world. They had no means to empathize because his world was just too connected, too unreal to their own. But with the right 4 words, in this case 4 words, you can make people see whatever you want them to see. And gentlemen, that is my twin. Oh, wait a minute. What were those 4 words?
Wait a minute. I got robbed.
What 4 words did Rosser add? And I love this. The sign originally read, maybe had 3 words, says, I am blind. Here are the 4 words that Rosser added to the beginning. It is springtime and. So then the sign then read, it is springtime and I am blind. The Rosser modified sign moved the people in Central Park to empathize with the beggar by starkly comparing their reality with his. They said, wow, I'm enjoying this springtime. Here's a man who is blind. He says, all of a sudden, they could relate their world to his world, where before they couldn't. They could appreciate springtime, and it made people that. Now, there were other two things that Rosser is also famous for. He, again, the better living through chemistry, he used that for one of his clients called DuPont Chemicals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But he also came up with the M&M slogan. They melt in your mouth and not in your hand.
Which hand has the M&M's chocolate candy? Not this hand. That's ordinary chocolate candy. It's melted. But this one, there's no chocolate mix. Because M&M's milk chocolate melts in your mouth, not in your hand. Now there are 2 exciting candies to choose from. The ever-popular M&M's plain chocolate candies and the new M&M's peanut chocolate candies.
I'm one of the M&M's plain chocolate candies. Solid milk chocolate inside and a colorful sugar shell outside. And I'm a delicious peanut. But look what happens to me. First I'm drenched in creamy milk chocolate, then covered with a crisp, thin sugar shell. Look for this M on each piece.
Try M&M's chocolate candies with peanuts or plain. Remember, M&M's milk chocolate melts in your mouth, not in your hand.
So the small business lesson that I came out of, by the way, I love this story, that I came up with, when we talk about what we do, we must also answer this question as we're talking. As compared to what? As compared to what? Dick, I'm looking at you. You talk about Legal Shield as compared to not, and I know you do this, as on your flip, on your as compared to not having Legal Shield.
Right.
Peter, the main things you do on your websites as compared to not having a good website. And in my case, what I'm doing with this project, as opposed to not having a program to attract people. So contrast, to quote Rosser Reeves, contrast, contrast, contrast.
I have more protection than you, Frank.
Yes, you do.
Even though this is the right one.
Right,
Still have
right.
more protection.
Anyway, so that's my twin about Mr. Rosser Reeves.
Very cool.
That was very good.
I don't know what I was watching, but it was famous advertising jingles, I think. And the I Like Ike came on.
Oh.
And they played I think I can probably find that chunk of video too, so I may have an example for you. And the better living through chemistry was always coined in my era with doing drugs.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
Through chemistry.
There you go. But again, going back to the lesson, how many, and again, we see it all the time, and we hear when we go to networking events, I do this, and I do this, and my company does this.
Yeah.
As compared to what? Give me something to compare it by. right? Steve Jobs, again, you know how I feel about Steve Jobs. He compared the iPhone to the flip phone as compared to what?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the flip phone, nobody wanted a flip phone, right? Because they compared to what the new thing was to what the old thing was. And Ross Reese came up with the USP. I thought that was pretty cool. He was so far ahead of his time.
Well,
And he was a drunk who got thrown out of school because he was drunk, thrown out of college.
yeah. I think the real power is he did it in 4 words.
Wow. There you go. 4 words.
Yeah.
And all the words except the third word was 1 syllable.
Yeah.
I am spring. No, it is springtime, and that was it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's impressive. An impressive gentleman.
I think it is. Yeah.
All right.